So Franck, maybe you can talk a little bit about your background as well as your role at BSMA and what they're doing in the industry around supply chain.
Yeah, so the background is a little bit long, but I will make it short. I've been working in operation and supply chain for the life science industry in various positions for the last 20 years. I would say both for pharma, biotech companies, but also for international organizations such as WHO, World Bank, and others in different positions. And actually, we had like some working groups that were collaborating. And was managing a work group in Europe, and in the US there was a group that was built around the same thematics. And together we joined forces to create a BSMA. Okay. BSMA was already a group active in the US. And so BSMA stands for Bio Supply Management Alliance. And the idea is to put together actors to work along the supply chain on, I would say, not really sharing the supplies, demands, and purchase, but really sharing good practices, information, best cases. And so from there, actually, collaboration has been at the heart of our goal more than 10 years ago. But collaboration can start with just discussing with another company or discussing with your supplier. And in that role, we've been accompanying the different aspects of collaboration, including the digital transformation and the collaboration with suppliers, clients, partners, competitors. Right. And through that, the link with TraceLinks came quite naturally, I would say.
Great, great. So you talked about digital transformation. So maybe to get started, how can an organization assess their readiness to start a digital transformation project in their supply chain? Earlier today, we heard from George and others about how projects may get approved, but maybe you can talk about how they assess their readiness, right, and try to understand their current position and what their gaps are.
Yeah, I think it's really important to start with a readiness assessment. We've been working on some tools, one quite complex with 400 points, where we've been scanning organization in the different aspects of the organization, from, I would say, all the processes from demand planning, from supply aspects to distribution, but also some transversal aspects. And we look at the different tools that are in place, also the culture of the company, the management styles, every aspect which at the end might influence, I would say, the supply chain digitalization project. So the idea is to give some maturity on different part of the company, to know where it is. So it's not like an audit, it's not like a control nor a fiscal analysis. That's really to support organization. So the idea is to know where it's maybe weak, maybe there should be more collaboration, where there is a risk in the organization. So that's better allocating also the aspects that are coming after when it comes to a project of transformation, because the previous speaker was telling us about the journey. That's really a journey. So we have to know which type of journey we will have. Will it be long? Will it be complex? And also on that aspect, we're also looking at the budget, the financial means, which are also needed for that transformation, as well as the human resource capabilities and other aspects.
So it's interesting. So clearly this is a cross-functional initiative involving a lot of different resources and skill sets across the organization. But have you found, is there a single group that is better positioned to lead the initiative? Is it something that should be led by IT? Is it something that should be led by supply chain? Clearly both are involved, but who's really taking the lead at that point?
I would say it depends really on the company, the organization, also the people, because that's also a question of people at the end of the day. So from the different examples that have been successful, there were sometimes the supply chain groups or the operational excellence group. I think of one company that had like operations that were quite smooth, but they had like an improvement, continuous improvement team that was quite ready to take that kind of project and that had a good knowledge of the whole organization. Sometimes when it comes from the IT, they need to get a good view on the operations and also like the client's needs, every aspect of the business itself.
Yep.
So it depends on the level of maturity of the business itself. And sometimes we've seen projects that were initiated by other departments that were like I would say the trendsetter for the others of an internal change management process. So I would say we have to take the best candidates to make it a success. So that's also a top management evaluation to know by which part they will start.
So it sounds like it really can be any group, whoever's really the best positioned and with the right skill sets is.
Yeah, and I've seen in some companies like where the CIO is actually someone from supply chain. It's not like an IT guy.
Yeah.
It's just like someone that has like a good view on processes, organization in different aspects, and he can, I would say, translate the needs into some IT language for the teams to apply then the project. So, but that's really important. That brings also to some key success factors, is to define the goals and the objectives, which are not the same for every company. So we have to look at what will be achieved behind the project before setting up, and that kind of actors can be a good person to give that overview.
And so when groups are starting and you've been involved or leading some of these efforts, what are the common mistakes or learnings that companies go through initially that you would want to advise the audience on, maybe things that they can avoid or be better prepared for? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't want to say there are many because that can be discouraging. So there are challenges to take account of, and some are well known. But what I've regularly seen and what we notice is lack of preparedness. First, also lack of existing data, but also lack of financial planning for that kind of project. So it's good to have planned the resources initially. Some companies have to additionally raise fund for that, so they have to convince stakeholders. So really knowing about the impact and also translating it into the language of the decider to have the sponsor agreement. And sometimes the CEO, the COO might have like a financial background or an operational one or a data one. So you have to speak the language that can convince, or if it depends on the process-oriented organization or a cost-oriented organization. So these are important elements. Also on the teams, evaluating the staff and the capabilities to implement that kind of project, the time, because that's just not the fact to allocate a project leader, but he should keep time available to manage the project, because that's good, like to give a flag, but then if the jobs remain the same for the rest of the day, project might be affected, which also leads to the change management approach and building the teams around the project. If we start in the wrong direction, we won't get like really the team going on and following up. So there are different aspects, and also like sometimes companies under-evaluate the costs they have in non-quality or in errors because they don't see it. Sometimes it's hidden. They just see face cost, but they don't see the benefits of an improved process and quality. So sometimes what we have to really to do is to reformulate what might be the benefits in terms of lead time, in terms of competition advantage, and other benefits which are quite hidden benefits,
Sure,
but that might
yeah.
be very interesting for a company. So sometimes it goes with business cases where we demonstrate the value, because the value can be in different spaces where we don't expect to have it.
Do you find that companies underestimate the time and the cost required from their teams to participate and drive an initiative like this? We all have our day jobs that we do every day, and is this something that you can do on the side, or do people underestimate that cost?
Yeah, the time is quite often
Yeah,
underestimated, depending also on I would say, the manager's experience. Some companies also have been through different projects already, so I have also people that have experience. What we see now also is that like some leaders are changing from one company to
right,
another,
right.
so they bring their experience to a new company, so that can facilitate the industry aspect. And one of the good things is that, like I see, like with BSMA, we have also our event, and I was like discussing with some VPs and asking them if they were willing to enter some panel discussions, and most of them were saying, "I'm there to learn." So we see that there was also a lack of maturity
Sure,
at some
sure.
points globally that we see. So that's also an increase which require actually time, and that's an additional pressure. So that's something to put in mind when we discuss at the project. But that's also an opportunity for people and really promising leaders into one company to take also important roles. So
Right.
that's also how we see things. Yesterday, a company was telling me we're, really working like in the 80s, and we cannot motivate our team,
Right.
because we have tools from the past. We work like in the past, and we cannot keep talent. So digital transformation, being in a company that works with efficient tools, is also important for the building of a team.
Sure.
So that's like maybe a side benefit we sometimes forget.
Yeah, it's a good point. So it leads into kind of moving to the next topic of when you kick that project off and you initiate that project, how do you start to break down the silos between different functional groups that make up the supply chain and operations team in, say, a large organization?
We have like different examples to make and to use to show the interactions that are actually effective within an organization. Sometimes it can be through gaming.
Yep.
Actually,
Interesting.
there are some techniques to show that one job of one person might have an impact on another. So making them realize that that's a teamwork. Then there are many ways to really realize those aspects. And that's funny because I had like also a good example of one of our testimonial at BSMA. It was actually from Amazon Studio. That was like another industry, but that was the first studio created since Netflix is the COO.
Interesting.
And like they are working with their main competitor, they're distributing with their main competitor. They have digitized their supply chain
Sure.
from like 30 years ago. And they are the top of, I would say, the example of a fully integrated supply chain where the suppliers are the same. You can be a supplier, a competitor, same distributor. And so this guy has used an example that we like because he said, like, in his presentation, he was talking about broccoli, and at the end he said, broccoli, we always have to eat broccoli. That's good for the health. That's the same for digital in your supply chain. So put some digital in your supply chain, like some broccoli, in your plate. So sometimes you don't want to eat it, but you need it. And that was the parallel we were doing, really to show that even for the companies or the people that are not keen to it, you need it, that's good for you.
That's a great analogy. So in working with the team, how do you get the team to build more agility into their processes? Obviously, digital transformation's new. How do you start to prepare for the agility that they need in performing their work?
Well, that's a lot. That's always like in a change management approach that can be long to talk about, but that's going through the same systems of, really showing the impact that one can have on another, and this agility is also exercised naturally because we're in a world now where we have to be agile more and more. So we've seen that in the supply side, in the different aspects when you scale up your organization. So try always to put that in the teams, but that's also by really upskilling the people. So we focus a lot also on development, different skills, so that people can adapt to new project, new development, AI tomorrow, and other aspects.
Right, right. So we talked a lot about the value of digital transformation, supply chain orchestration to the business, right? As an organization, but ultimately, these projects, the success is based on the individuals that are participating in the process. So how do you help get the individual to recognize the value to them personally?
That's like a little bit like what I explained by really like reinforcing the capabilities by being in such projects or by valorizing the impact that they might have on an organization, but also in our industry for healthcare and life science, also for the patient. So getting like really an opportunity to save more lives at the end of the day. But yeah, the different aspects for people to realize might be different also from different groups of people to another. So that's good to have the different approach that might lead to that. And that's also another challenge we see. Typically in companies that have a quite old setup is sometimes some conflict of generation, but people that were used to work with a tool that was working, and so people have to work together in those projects. So that requires really to listen to everyone and to keep like everyone acting together. But what I wanted to say also regarding value creation is that one word that we say is that like besides a pharma product, a biotech product, a treatment, there is a lot of value that could be brought by supply chain, and typically digital supply chain transformation can be very efficient. So what we ask also is that, do you have like 30 value points besides your product? So do you have like right inventory? Do you have like visibility on the stocks? Do you aggregate your CMOs? Are you on time for deliveries? What is your inventory ratio and other aspects? So we try to look at the customers also return. Are they happy for that? Are they requiring for more in different aspects? And that's generally the case. The customer require always more and more. And sometimes it's very difficult to make the difference on prices nowadays. There are a lot of pressure, a lot of competition, different reimbursement pressure as well. So operational excellence can make really the difference for a company. So that's what also we emphasize when talking about the digital supply chain aspect. That's a way really to create value for the clients, for the company. And so we try also to explain to the people within a company that like by working on that project, they can make also the company better than others. That just not only the product, also that's maybe for the thing that is well known, but really sometimes companies do come to one on another because they have like good visibility, or they manage their stock, or they do automatic replenishment. So at the end of the day, they secure, I would say, their client relations. So that's also a key competitive advantage for the companies. And that's also something that has to go through the organization to the top management as well.
Great, great. So maybe as we start to wrap up here, what would you recommend for folks in the audience that are going back to their organizations and are starting to either participate or are being asked to pull strategies together around digital transformation? Maybe some couple of points on how to start or recommendations on where to start.
Yeah, I think like it's always good to start with what are the goals
Mm.
behind it, and the real goals. It can be in the direction of different departments or different part of the company, but knowing what are the goals. Uh, Start to get prepared as well to anticipate those challenges of finance, talent, and other aspects in order to not oversell a project that might be difficult to realize afterwards. So that's good really to prepare it correctly, to have a kind of roadmap, although it requires to be improved afterwards. That's good to do a first scan of the technologies that are out of the market, like here. That's good to learn about it, so that there is already a game plan, an idea of the journey in terms of resources to try to identify internally who might be the good leaders to involve in a project, and actually to be ready to sell internally a project, also knowing what will be the decision factors of the decision maker to accept that project. So sometimes I see some frustration of project being rejected. For me, that's a question. That's always a question of value
Right.
at the end of the supply chain digitalization. But that can be the value that was badly sold, or maybe the value was not perceived.
Right.
So maybe that's good to work with partners or potential service provider in saying how can I present that to my board, to my decision maker, so that it gets validated, and that's another way of collaborating. We're not like with like one supplier, one client. That's the same here. That's really collaborating on the project. So
Right.
that's a good example.
So yesterday we heard a lot about identifying areas where quick wins can be established within the organization as part of these projects. Are there certain supply chain processes that you've seen that are better to start with over another one, or is it really unique to the organization? Have you seen any trends in that area?
I see a lot of challenges in the demand
In the demand
planning.
side, yeah.
And
Yep.
so that's what we always say, that it starts with that if we want to pilot an organization in a good way, and that's quite often a difficult part. Because it becomes also more and more difficult to plan
Right.
and to analyze
Right.
the demand, because also it's difficult to recruit within teams. People are leaving quite rapidly, so it's difficult also to get data. Sometimes the data are
Yeah.
not good. So that's generally a good start of a project, because I would say if I have to say a figure, 90% of the time people have to say something on that part.
Right.
And they say it should be improved in some way. So that can be something on which there can be a consensus to start discussion. But just one example, that's not like.
Great. Great. Well, I certainly appreciate you joining us today and spending some time with us.